It's a day of celebration, Thursday the 24th of May 2012, and the return of steam trains operating at North Weald Station in Essex for over 50 years. This is the result of over 4 years' work by volunteers involving extensive engineering and restoration works on the former branch of London Underground's Central Line. Now the longest heritage railway in the county, the Epping Ongar Railway opens up a 6-mile route through scenic Essex countryside for tourists and enthusiasts to enjoy. Enjoying the official launch were invited guests, supporters and members of national and heritage press. Many will remember the line as a daily commute to Epping before changing for London-bound Central Line trains into the capital.
Well, you know, I've got memories of this line going back sort of to the late 70s and into the 80s, when it was the old rolling stock from the tube lines that were still running here, sort of struggling to provide a service under London Underground. That sort of slipped away, didn't it, during the 1990s, and now today, not only are those memories coming back, but memories that I never had before. You know, I never saw steam, and now I can see it for the first time, what, in 2012?
Now the electrified track has gone, and this has given way to diesel and steam rolling stock that now brings new life to this Essex branch. Today's opening ceremony marks the start of regular passenger services from Ongar to North Weald. And manager Simon Hanney is clearly delighted.
I'm delighted that Epping Ongar Railway is officially open today. Obviously it's the resumption of steam services for the first time in 55 years on the branch. It really is the culmination of many years hard work by the volunteers, and many people have worked really hard on all manner of different bits and pieces, whether that's the track, the signals, the rolling stock, or indeed on the locomotives or on the stations, in order to restore the railway and to have trains once again running on the railway.
Today's launch has brought local enthusiasts back to a line that has long since remained idle, and its reopening has prompted much interest.
We've had a phenomenal response from the media. Many of the local papers such as the Gazette and the Guardian have covered our progress all the way through, and has reported as we've had various bits of rolling stock and steam engines and so on arrive. But we've also been pleasure to welcome down people like BBC London, BBC Look East as well today, as well as many of the heritage magazines have come down today to celebrate with us the culmination of these many years hard work. And we've been very conscious today to invite down some of those people that have helped us out along the way, perhaps some of the people who believed in us and helped us when the branch wasn't running trains, and when it looked like things weren't perhaps happening from the outside. But there was obviously a lot of work going on by the volunteers, and a number of people came forward and helped us out, whether that's giving us contacts or helping us get items of rolling stock. And today we've been really delighted to be able to welcome those people back down the branch again, so they can share with us in this very exciting and momentous day.
The existence of Epping Ongar Railway today is largely down to one man, Roger Wright. He has invested heavily in restoring the railway and purchasing the rolling stock. His commitment to this railway is born out of a personal association with the line, but his first passion is actually buses. Even now, Roger is very much hands-on and is often seen driving a 339 heritage bus that is very much part of the Epping Ongar Railway experience. The restoration of the Epping Ongar Railway has been possible through financial investment and the dedication of many volunteers, bringing much interest to the area. Local BBC radio presenter Steve Scruton has been one of the keen supporters of the project.
It first came to my attention when I was driving through Ongar and saw the old railway station, and then noticed a few more bits of rolling stock appearing. So I made a few inquiries, checked the local press, and sure enough, a new preservation society under new leadership had taken the helm, and made a quick phone call, and it was clear to me that the objectives, the stakes have been raised, quite frankly, and it looked to me as though something might happen. The opening of this railway's finally come for Essex, and what a great day it is for the county. After all the years of neglect, now the volunteers have finally got it together, thanks to Roger and Simon and a whole host of volunteers, something like 100 people, to make this happen. What a day.
The achievement in reopening the line is the latest chapter in the history of the railway in Essex that originally dates back over 150 years. Passengers can now board a variety of steam and diesel services depending on availability. And here, heading on the up line towards North Weald, is the pride of the Epping Ongar Railway, Pitchford Hall. Pitchford Hall was built in Swindon in 1929 at a cost of £4,375. Hall-class locomotives like this were used all over the Great Western and Western region. After Pitchford Hall had undergone a comprehensive overhaul at Tyseley Locomotive Works, she made her first public appearance at Crewe in September 2005. Since then, the loco has served on the main line, operating a number of special charter trains, as well as visits to a number of heritage railways, including West Somerset and Mid Hants. Fans of the Harry Potter films may recognise Pitchford Hall as it's the sister train to Alton Hall, which has gained international recognition as the Hogwarts Express. The engine has undergone a 7-figure restoration and is operated by volunteers on the line. The development of steam engines and locomotives powered a golden age of travel at the time of the Industrial Revolution. Britain led the world in the production of steam engines and employed many thousands of men in the railways, laying over 7,000 miles of track in the UK by around 1865. The Midlands became an industrial powerhouse, producing products for an international marketplace with foundries both here and in Scotland, producing locomotives that supplied many of the world's railways. Steam railways dominated transport for over 100 years, and this golden age has always held a fascination for train enthusiasts and historians alike. Thanks to the Epping Ongar Railway, passengers can now experience the thrill of steam travel and learn more about this bygone era, all made possible by a small army of volunteers.
The volunteers that have come to this railway are really getting something out of it, not just volunteering their services, but they're learning so much, and at very top levels. You know, some of the engineering skills that are used here come from the very top of the tree, and then you go right down to somebody just a moment ago sweeping the platform. You know, all of these jobs have got to be done at every single level. A lot of the people here who volunteered are ex-railway people. They've got the skills, they've got the knowledge. Without that, obviously this operation wouldn't work.
We've got all sorts of volunteers, anything ranging from people who can just about hold a paintbrush, ranging up to people that can machine things. So yeah, we've got a very, very wide range of people that work here on the locomotives, the carriages and the diesels.
Volunteers are crucial, not just for the upkeep of track and rolling stock, but for passenger services too.
My role today is as a guards instructor. I'm working this train between Ongar and Coopersale all day, and I've got a trainee with me at the moment who's looking after the train while I'm doing this little interview. Well, I'm one of the very original volunteers. I'm member number 1. Started back in 2001, and I've been here since then virtually continuously. Being an ex-professional railwayman, I am an ex-train driver. For me, it's quite a lot of memories involved in this. It's a line that I worked on once in the 70s as a station foreman, and it brings back a lot of memories for me.
Volunteers provide a whole range of duties.
I first became attracted to the railway having worked on the underground at this area during the 70s. Then when I came up to retirement, I obviously was looking for some things to interest me in a personal way, as well as stretching yourself so you get your mind still working. And I decided, as I lived local, that the Epping Ongar Railway would be for me. I joined the Central Line in 1970 and worked at a number of East End signal boxes, including the one we're in today, which was North Weald. When I came down here, I didn't have an intention to be a signalman, but as the line got closer to opening and I see the signal box being restored to how it was in the 70s, and obviously as it was in the 1880s, I thought this is the sort of a thing I'd like to be involved in. And having previously worked here, I thought it would be nice to return perhaps to some of my roots and work as a signalman again.
North Weald Station today is in a very different condition to a few years ago, when much renovation work was needed.
And we've had a mantra all the way through: if we're going to do the job, we might as well do it properly. For example, at North Weald, we adjusted all the track heights so that the track went through the platforms at the correct level, rather than the London Underground levels, which are slightly higher because obviously their coaches are shorter. We lowered the track through the station platforms and put back the track through the up platform so that we can once again use both platforms. The platform in the up direction has been extended, and this is to enable us to add additional coaches to the trains, hopefully as demand increases. We've also restored the original goods platform at North Weald, which will hopefully in the future be used as a bay platform for a shuttle service out to Cooper Sale and indeed to Epping, hopefully in the future. We've worked at restoring the goods yard to add additional sidings and to put back some of the sidings that were there originally, in order to have the facility to expand our engineering fleet, as well as to have a greater variety of passenger coaches, so our passengers have a nice variety of rolling stock to come and travel when they come and visit the railway. Also at North Weald, we've spent quite a bit of time restoring the signal box. The restoration works on this started in 2006. When we first started off there, the stairs were completely rotten, the signal box lever frame was rusted solid, and 2/3 of the glass was broken and many of the window frames were rotten. When it used to rain, the water used to come off the gutter and straight into the signal box. So one of the earlier things we did was to start to preserve that building, start to make it watertight, work on the signal frame, and work on the window frames as well. And we're now seeing the culmination of all that work, seeing the signal box starting to be commissioned, the signal structures, those are the signal posts outside, have been installed and are now starting to be wired up. So we're once again passing trains at North Weald, as used to happen all the way from 1888 all the way through to 1978, when London Underground closed the loop. The station building at North Weald has been completely restored. Again, this station building has been restored into LNER, or British Rail Eastern colours. So it's 1940s through 1950s and 1960s type of colours, with the characteristic green and cream arrangement. Inside the booking hall, we've demolished the London Underground ticket machine room, which was built in the early 1980s, and we've restored the ladies' waiting room again. And again, we've actually reinstalled the ladies' toilet where it was originally, put back original light fittings, restored the original fireplaces, and really worked very hard to get that kind of characteristic atmosphere you get when you walk into an old-fashioned station building and there's perhaps a nice roaring fire going, the ticket clerk is sitting behind the desk very politely, and you know, we've even gone to the stage of having original Edmondson card tickets, so that you know, people can really enjoy their step back in time and have an authentic experience with us.
Visitors now come to the railway not just for the thrill of the train ride, but to learn more about the branch line that dates back over 150 years. The origins of the Epping to Ongar line can be traced back to August 1856, with the opening of the Eastern Counties Railway, which ran from Stratford to Loughton. The passenger line was then extended to transport goods, where a goods yard was situated in Loughton in 1858. Rail traffic was extended in 1865 by a single track from Loughton through Chigwell Lane, now known as Debden, Thaden Boys, Epping, North Weald, Blake Hall and Ongar, as part of the Great Eastern Railway. 7 steam trains travelled daily from Ongar in the 1860s, either to Fenchurch Street or Bishopsgate. And when Liverpool Street Station opened in 1874, services increased to 12. This rail route opened up a new opportunity to journey into the capital.
Prior to the opening of the railway, Ongar was a very rural area. The opening of the railway really brought about a bit of a change. It was, I kind of sometimes say that it was almost like the coming of the internet, in terms of suddenly there was a facility to be able to get on a train and to be in central London in a very short length of time. Previously, the only transportation would have been by horse and cart.
The new faster route for goods services to and from London brought additional wealth to the area.
The residents of Ongar and the surrounding area could bring their agricultural products to Ongar and export them perhaps into London and further afield to get better prices for their products. But it also meant that things like improvements to agriculture, such as agricultural machinery, fertiliser and things like that, could be imported into the area, as well as of course coal. And these were the days when many houses, in fact nearly all the houses, were probably heated by coal, by solid fuel, and the branch would have supplied all that coal, and there was extensive coal yards both here at Ongar, at Blake Hall and at North Weald.
As demands on the line increased, a double track was built between Loughton and Epping in 1893, resulting in increased daily services to Epping and Ongar. Life along the branch was very much a rural, largely agricultural community around the turn of the 20th century, and freight traffic on the railway continued to increase, with milk in particular being transported to Stratford. Many changes had been made at Ongar Station during the early 20th century, including the building of a cattle pen to house livestock, a new approach road, porter's room and a weighbridge. A recent housing development next to Ongar Station has unearthed the original weighbridge that is now on permanent display at the station.
This has been a bit of a voyage of discovery, because when we first alerted McCarthy and Stone to its presence, we didn't know how good a condition, or indeed if it would still be intact. And so when it arrived on site here, it was covered over with asphalt, and the volunteers have chipped the asphalt off very carefully. The detail on it is actually quite fantastic, and I haven't seen another weighbridge of as good a quality and as good a condition.
The demand for increased goods on the line led to further development of Ongar Station towards the latter part of the 19th century.
In 1891, the Great Eastern Railway Company built a milk dock, a special platform especially to handle the milk traffic here at Ongar, and milk traffic receipts increased quite substantially. So by 1911 they actually ran special milk trains, and around this time Ongar Station here alone was exporting 1,200 17-gallon milk churns every week into central London.
Indeed, the milk trade was also the driving force at Blake Hall Station, named after the local country house that had been owned by the Capel-Cure family since 1789. Their dairy farming estate relied heavily on the railway.
The prime advantage of having the railway and Blake Hall railway station was that it was a fantastic way of transporting milk from the farms directly into the East End of London to the customers. The property is a Georgian house with Victorian extensions. It was extended in the 19th century, and it still is part of an agricultural estate with 60 acres of land directly associated with the house and a farm of 500 acres.
The outbreak of the First World War was to have an impact on the Epping to Ongar line. Aerial warfare was in its infancy, but attacks from German Zeppelin airships had started to occur in Britain. Air defence was therefore needed for London, and local farmland at North Weald, with easy access to the railway, was deemed an ideal location for an airfield.
One of the reasons for an airfield being here was the fact that there was a railway, there was a road, there was the good drainage. It meant that you could get to London in about 45 minutes. It meant that essential engineering and at times in war, even bombs could be brought in here. So you can see if it hadn't been here, I don't think if the railway hadn't been here, I don't think that the airfield would have existed, quite frankly.
North Weald Airfield became an operational fighter station in the spring of 1916. When 11 aircraft from A Flight of 39 Squadron Home Defence Force took up residence. The railway played a key role in providing the airfield with vital supplies and food. Fighter pilots were the superstars of their generation, and when North Weald pilot 2nd Lieutenant Walton Tempest downed Zeppelin L-31 in his BE-2 biplane, he was hailed as a local hero. Tempest Mead is a road just before the entrance to North Weald Station, named in honour of this pilot. During the war, many buildings were requisitioned, with one being Blake Hall, which was used as a hospital for wounded soldiers. When the war ended, North Weald Airfield was left to decline and was officially put under care and maintenance measures, and for the local railway, normal steam services resumed. However, changes were made to the railways themselves following the Railways Act of 1921, where companies were grouped and the Great Eastern Railway was absorbed by the London North Eastern Railway, or LNER as it was known. Ongar has been restored to Great Eastern Railway colours, and now it's served by both steam and diesel locomotives. Passengers can travel to Ongar and explore the town, taking in some of its surrounding attractions. Ongar High Street is a short walk from the station and features a range of independent shops as well as restaurants and public houses. The town still has a historic feel with period architecture. An historic connection with Ongar Station and a local church is marked by a blue wall plaque along the station platform, which relates back to that fateful year of 1912. Father Thomas Biles, priest of St Helen's Church in Ongar, left the station on the 10th of April, bound for Southampton, to travel on the newest and largest ship in the world, RMS Titanic. He was travelling to conduct his brother's wedding in America, but perished on April the 15th after Titanic hit an iceberg the previous evening. Father Andrew Hurley is the current priest at St Helen's.
Father Biles was, for about 7 years or 8 years, we're not sure, he was rector of this parish. He was a very popular priest, as far as we know, and a very dedicated priest here. He used to have a shed in the garden for boxing. He encouraged the lads with the boxing, and then he received this invitation from his brother in America to officiate at his wedding. He left Ongar Station to go to Southampton, and when we put the plaque up at the station, I said that he was not only a heroic priest, but like most Catholic priests, he was very human, and he left his umbrella on the train. We know that because he wrote a letter to his housekeeper.
What was intended as a joyous family occasion became a fatal journey for the priest and many others too.
The Titanic sank and he was on board. He had in fact, I think, been celebrating Mass for the people on the board before the sinking, before they even hit the iceberg, I think, and had talked about the heroism of giving your life for God in that sermon. And then when it actually took place, one of the sailors invited him to come on board, but he refused. He wanted to stay with the people on board. His family, after the event, went to Rome, saw the Pope, and the Pope declared him a martyr for what he'd done. You know, he was so heroic. In the church here, we've got a memorial stained glass window to depict what had took place and to remind us of the person he was.
The body of Father Thomas Biles was never recovered, but his memory now lives on in St Helen's Church. His role on the Titanic was included in the film made by James Cameron. The bygone era of the Great Eastern Railway can now be seen again at Ongar Station, thanks to much restoration work.
The restoration work undertaken by the volunteers here at Ongar Station has been quite extensive. They've worked on the station building, so they've restored back many of the rooms back to their original layouts, removing perhaps partitions and rooms put in by London Underground, perhaps in the 1970s and 1980s, to return the station back to its original condition, its original room layouts. We're very lucky that those alterations made by London Underground didn't affect much of the fabric of the building. For example, the original coving's been left in place. The station here has been restored back to the 1900s, and many of the features have been put back in again. For example, the fireplaces, and we have a lovely Great Eastern Railway fireplace that's been restored by the volunteers, and our retired sign writer has spent many hours painting the Great Eastern Railway crest on the fireplace. Things like the ticket window, and it's been restored back so that again people can once again stand at the ticket window and have a nice brass change dish, as well as be served their original Edmondson ticket and really start their journey back in time. The station is now the only original Great Eastern Railway station in original Great Eastern Railway colours. It's obviously operational and running trains from.
Helping to restore buildings, rolling stock and track are members of the Epping Ongar Railway Volunteer Society.
The role of the volunteer members of the society is to help rebuild this railway. We've been at it now for about 3 years. We opened in May. A lot more work to be done, of course, yet. We still want a lot more people to come and help us. We're doing everything from driving to doing permanent way, laying ballast, rebuilding the stations, the signal boxes, everything to do with the railway. We've come a very long way very quickly in the last 18 months. We've relayed all the track, we've replaced all the signalling, we've rebuilt trains. It's amazing the progress in the last 18 months. The profile of our members is very varied. We go from people like myself who've been in the city, we've got retired surgeons, we've got chaps who used to drive trains. They come from all sections of the community.
As well as experienced volunteers, there are also many young people only too willing to lend a hand in a variety of roles. All volunteers, however, have to undergo the necessary training to ensure safety is maintained.
For the safety of the line, predominantly I get involved in working with the manager who's responsible for training and the quality of the staff in doing the basic inductions, basic track training, and then monitoring the database that maintains this information, particularly when they go on to some of the advanced skills such as driving or signalman. I look after those on behalf of the manager, pointing out any people who are coming up to date for renewals and such like.
Epping Ongar Railway is also providing essential experience for apprentices who are training for a worthwhile career in the railway industry, ensuring that there are future skilled engineers necessary for essential rail improvements. The apprentices are being trained by training company Vital Services.
The apprentice scheme here that we have running here at Vitals at EOR Railway, we're training the guys to achieve an MVQ, level 2 in railway engineering. So they learn basically everything there is to know about railway maintenance and renewals. The lads are involved in the day-to-day maintenance of the tracks. They've also undertaken some renewals work. They've worked in the sheds here, building up 60-foot panels, ballasting works, re-railing, you know, a wide scope of railway engineering. There's some big projects coming in the country. We are short of skills right across the board, from the very lower levels at P-way maintenance right through to engineers. This is giving the lads a really good platform to start from. Epping Ongar is a fantastic facility for vital skills because the apprentices have got a wide range of components, different rail sections. It's a real live railway. These things are hard to find. You know, we can't just go and turn up on Network Rail's infrastructure and start walking about the track, you know. So we have everything we need here.
The apprentices are based at North Weald Station, where much improvement work has already been achieved, together with volunteers on the line at both North Weald and Ongar. One shining example of restoration work has been to the signal box at Ongar.
The Ongar signal box has been restored. This is originally a structure that came from Spellbrook that was saved when Network Rail was undertaking the West Anglia re-signalling project. The top half of this signal box was saved from Spellbrook, which is a Great Eastern Type 7, which is identical to the type that was originally here at Ongar before London Underground demolished that back in the 1980s. That's been restored and put back on a set of frames. The bottom half of that signal box has been made from scratch by the volunteers, and so hopefully it goes together to make a Great Eastern Type 7 signal box on the footprint roughly of the original signal box. And so we hope that many of our visitors may not even realise that the original signal box was demolished. And a nice fitting addition to that is the original Ongar signal frame, which was made available by Ongar Railway Preservation Society, and they very kindly had saved the frame and made it available to us so that we can once again have the trains coming in and out of Ongar being signalled using the original Ongar signal lever frame from a Great Eastern type structure at the end of the platforms.
Apart from restored stations and buildings, it's the rolling stock on the line that brings the heritage experience to life.
My role at Epping Ongar is basically looking after all the locomotives, rolling stock, anything with a set of wheels underneath it is basically my sort of domain, as it were. The type of rolling stock we've got here, we've got anything ranging from mainline steam locomotives to little industrial steam shunters, and the same with diesels, mainline diesels, shunting diesels. We have all sorts of wagons, we've got Mark II coaches, Mark I coaches, and we've got some vintage coaches. So yeah, the spectrum is quite broad here. We've got a lot of P-way equipment as well. Obviously there's a lot of maintenance that has to go on. Steam engines take a lot of caring for. Nowadays you can't just obviously go to your local store down the road and buy your bits and pieces off the shelf, so there's a lot of maintenance that goes on with steam locomotives. Also there's a lot that goes on with coaches. We have to obviously give a good standard to what we want to work to, so there's a lot of restoration going on, and the maintenance as well is just never ending.
Whilst thousands of steam locomotives were originally made, there are relatively few working examples today. The first locomotive purchased by Epping Ongar Railway was a 1919 Hawthorne Leslie saddle tank named Isabel. This loco spent the whole of its working life at ICI Foodstuffs, at their dye plant in Brackley, where she was finally withdrawn from service in 1969. An almost unblemished career was marred during the general strike of 1926, when enthusiastic amateurs lost control of her and she ran away, demolishing the locomotive shed doors and her sister engine in the process. After restoration work that was completed in 2005, she eventually became available for purchase in 2010 and was bought by Epping Ongar Railway. New to the Epping Ongar line is the 4141 medium-sized tank engine. The locomotive was built in Swindon in 1946 and spent all its working life allocated to Horton Road in Gloucester. It was withdrawn in 1973 and saved for preservation. Now, having just been repainted, it will be seen on the branch over the coming years. Another steam loco seen here is Victory, which was built in 1945 by Andrew Barclay. It was given the works number 2199 and was delivered to the Royal Dockyard in Chatham, Kent, where it remained in service until being withdrawn in 1969. A recent restoration was carried out by father and son team Richard and Tony Goulden, and she's been based at North Weald Station since May 2012. Back in 1933, the London Passenger Transport Board was established, now known as London Transport. Railway improvements were being made that was part of the new works plan, and this included the electrification of the mainline track. This plan intended for electrification to extend to Ongar by 1941, but the Second World War quickly halted such plans. When Britain came under German attack, North Weald Station played a pivotal role, supplying the airfield nearby and also providing essential transport for the pilots.
During the Second World War, its essential part was to the people who lived, died and worked here was how quickly they could get to London. They were up in the air fighting in, shall we say, the Battle of Britain. Come down in an evening, the first thing they wanted to do is go and have a drink and go up to the nightlife. They could be up in London in 45 minutes or so. That made such a difference to them. Likewise, the stuff that had to be delivered every day to an airfield that was in the middle of battle that had been damaged. Most of it came by train.
North Weald Airfield was heavily involved during the Battle of Britain, as one of several fighter stations that were part of the 11 Group, responsible for defending London and the surrounding areas. During the Battle of Britain, the airfield was attacked with damage to hangars and the runway. As a result, the operations room was relocated first to Martin Ash Ongar and then to Blake Hall, which had been requisitioned again by the Ministry of Air Defence and used as RAF headquarters. Here, Blake Hall Station became the key transport hub for staff at Blake Hall. The airfield was known as a Hurricane Station, where Hurricane aircraft were flown not only by British pilots, but by foreign squadrons that included Polish, Czechoslovakian and Norwegian. The strong link with Norway and its Air Force is very evident today, outside the Airfield Museum, which is a short walk from North Weald Station.
The Norwegians returned after the war to North Weald. The ultimate accolade, shall we say, to North Weald was carried out in 1952 by Crown Princess Astrid of Norway, who unveiled a unique memorial stone which stands outside the old entrance to the airfield to this day, which is not a memorial to those who died, it's a thank you to the people of the Royal Air Force Station North Weald and the local community for the help and the kindness they showed to the Norwegians.
Ad Astra House is the former station commander's building and houses memorabilia from the airfield's historic past. Open every Sunday, this museum can be seen from the 339 bus as it approaches North Weald Station. Following the Second World War, work recommenced on the modification of the railway as part of the new works plan. The Central Line, which was the new name given in 1938 to the Central London Railway, was extended to Stratford in 1946. Further extensions followed to Leytonstone and Woodford in 1947, where steam trains from Ongar interchanged with the electric services. On the 25th of September 1949, electrification progressed to Epping. Trains from both directions used the existing two platforms. It was only after this time that the Epping to Ongar line was operated as a branch by British Railways for the Underground. Steam trains continued, where North Weald had benefited from a passing loop and a new footbridge in 1949. Peak passenger services were at 20-minute intervals, where locomotives were fitted with push-pull working that enabled the steam loco to stay at the London end whilst the driver could return to Ongar, driving the train from the rear coach.
Well, I go back to this line when I was a schoolboy, when it was still the steam trains. I used to commute from Stondermassey to Woodford daily on this line, and I can always remember my mother saying, don't put your head out the window, because the engines used to puff out a lot of smoke in those days. We didn't have smokeless fuel, and of course we used to lean out. We came home with our shirts completely black. So that's one of my strongest memories, but the other one was sleeping in the racks on the train. Remember, we were proper schoolboys in those days, doing things we shouldn't really do. And I was very sad when it ceased and became the Underground.
During the 50s, steam trains continued on the branch, with the busiest station being North Weald due to the airfield. In fact, there was an airfield incident in June 1957 that blemished the immaculate safety record of the branch. Treble 1 Squadron had formed the Black Arrows display team, and they were the forerunners of today's Red Arrows. They regularly practiced over North Weald in their Hawker Hunter jets, and during one practice, two jets collided. One of the Hunter jets crashed onto the line just west of North Weald, killing pilot David Garrett and derailing a train in the process. Train driver A.C. Green was commended for his action in stopping the train and ensuring passengers were safe. The arrival of jets at the airfield, together with new technology and the emergence of a Cold War era with Russia, meant that Blake Hall Operations Room was no longer fit for purpose. As a result, a new secret facility was built at Kelvedon Hatch, approximately 2 miles outside Ongar. This nuclear-proof bunker was originally used as an RAF rotor station, designed to play a major role in the defence of Britain. Later, the facility served as a civil defence centre and then a regional government headquarters. Personnel who worked here did so under the utmost secrecy, although word soon got around in the area concerning the importance of the bunker. Within this 3-storey fortress built below ground, there was a completely self-contained environment, with its own air purifying system, radio station and hospital. The secret nuclear bunker is now a tourist attraction and contains many exhibits from its history. Blake Hall was returned to the Capel Cure family, but the house had suffered from its military occupation, as the current owner explains.
My husband's grandfather was given the house back in 1948 by the Ministry of Air Defence, and the house was completely destroyed. If you can imagine a house that's been lived in by servicemen for 4 years and then 3 years after the war, bored servicemen 3 years after the war. The house was in a dreadful state when it was returned to Hugo's grandfather in 1948. There were no windows, no lead on the roof. The interior was completely destroyed. Where the operations room had been, the whole of that area was gutted and still is to this day. There was a conservatory that was taken down. The whole garden had been dug up and there was barbed wire everywhere.
For a period, the former operations room was turned into an air scene museum. This opened in 1984 and was run by two brothers. However, this closed in 2008 as the attraction became unsustainable. The country house now forms a backdrop as a wedding venue where ceremonies are staged in a converted barn.
The barn dates from 1642. It was obviously built as an agricultural building, but we understand that it was used as a meeting house during the English Civil War too. And it has been an agricultural building until now. Now it's been used as the wedding venue.
During the 50s, preparation had been made for the electrification of the Ongar branch.
It's believed that electric rails were laid past Epping and up the hill towards Cooper Sale around this time. But final electrification was only completed on the branch and was energised in 1957. From then onwards, the passenger trains were operated using what was standard stock then, and then latterly 1962 stock up and down the branch.
Along with passenger services, steam trains were still carrying freight until 1959, and later diesel engines provided nighttime services.
There was a scheduled freight train every night through to Ongar in the small hours of the morning, and then going up and shunting both Blake Hall and North Weald before then going back to Temple Mills in the small hours of the morning.
Power for the new electric branch was obtained from Epping, even though space had been set aside at Blake Hall for a substation. This light electrification meant that the power available for trains was limited and restricted the number of carriages that could be used. A 20-minute passenger service ran between Epping and Ongar. With the increase in road haulage, however, demand for freight services on the line diminished, and as a result, North Weald's goods yard was closed in 1964, with Blake Hall and Ongar surviving just 2 more years. The coal yards at Blake Hall and Ongar continued, but supplies and deliveries were carried out by road. At Ongar Station, the demise of freight services led to the closure of the signal box in 1969, when it was boarded up and subsequently demolished in the early 80s. Electric train services continued along the branch, interconnecting at Epping for the onward journey into London. The journey to Epping from Ongar still felt like a rural service compared to the Central Line route onwards, and the relaxed atmosphere was often noticed. One visitor to Epping Ongar Railway is Malcolm Parker, who served on the branch and vividly remembers his time on it.
My career started in February, 25th of February actually, 1980, where I came on as a direct recruit guard for the Underground. I was going to stay on it for 6 months. So this is the longest 6 months I've ever spent. I'm still on the Underground. And so I started on the trains, and then when the one-man operation came in, it was time to go on the stations. So I've been on there ever since. Working on the Ongar line especially was an absolute joy, because it was a branch line, and things changed as soon as you came and that turn in at Epping. Everything changed. The people up here were nice, all smiles, talking to each other. But as soon as they got to Epping, over the footbridge, onto the main line, all changed, grumpy. And in the evening they came back, over the footbridge, laughing, joking, got on the train. Lovely little branch line.
Passenger services started to decline on the branch, and from the 17th of October 1966, Blake Hall station closed on Sundays and a reduced weekday timetable took effect. By 1970, London Transport was reporting an annual loss of £100,000 on the Epping to Ongar section of the Central Line, and attempts were made to close it.
Being uneconomic to operate the branch, London Transport tried several times to try and cease passenger services on it. Their first attempt was back in the 1970s, and even as early as the 1970s, when London Transport muted the closure of the branch line, a preservation group came forward, was formed and came forward to preserve the line and to suggest operating steam up and down through the branch. This closure attempt in the early 1970s did not succeed, and the branch carried on operation.
As services continued, the viability of the line was still in question. In 1976, government spending reductions resulted in the 2 Ongar shuttle trains being reduced to 1. This increased the frequency of service to 40 minutes. Since there was no need for trains to pass at North Weald, the signal box was switched out of operation in October, and the passing loop lifted 2 years later. With reduced services, many passengers started to use their car to travel to Epping Station, and less use was made of the branch. Fare increases in 1977 did little to tempt passengers back on the line, and once again the writing was on the wall for the survival of the branch.
London Underground again suggested in the early 1980s to close the branch, and again another preservation society was formed and came forward once again to suggest to operate the branch using steam and diesel traction.
This attempt by London Transport to close the line failed again, but permission was granted to close Blake Hall, as it was reported that only 6 passengers travelled daily from the station. Blake Hall was the least used station on the entire underground network. The station officially closed on the 31st of October 1981, but in the following weeks and months it was reported that courteous drivers would still drop passengers off at the station. When London Transport Management heard this, a team of workmen was sent to Blake Hall to remove the front face of the platform. Blake Hall Station today is a private residence, and Epping Ongar trains pass alongside what remains of the original platform. Whilst passenger numbers fell, there was still one annual event during the mid-1980s that drew passengers in their thousands. North Weald Airfield staged fighter meet air shows that included many different aircraft, including reenactments of dogfights with Hurricane, Spitfire and Messerschmitt aircraft. These shows attracted thousands of visitors, and the fighter meet was a unique air show that relied heavily on visitors travelling in on the railway. The early 1990s saw a repeated threat of closure, and this time conditions for the sale of the line were agreed.
And again in 1994 when London Underground again applied to the Secretary of State, and the Secretary of State allowed the sale of the branch as a whole operational unit, as a whole operational railway, a Preservation Society came forward to suggest operating the branch as a heritage railway. Whilst London Underground chose to sell the branch to a commercial operation, heritage operations were very much part of the bid by that commercial organisation, operating things like dining trains alongside the services for local people.
London Transport finally suspended all branch services on the 30th of September 1994. The last day of operation was a sad affair, not only for passengers who used the line, but railway staff too. Malcolm Parker remembers his last day as a guard on the Epping Ongar branch.
Yes, the final day, 30th of September 1994, won't forget that. I actually came out with a driver from Hainault Depot. We little bit of sadness, more a feel of joy because we were going to do something. We were going to put on a show, and he said to me, "You come up with me," because he didn't know anything about trains, and I did. And he said, "You can answer all the questions." So yeah, it came up from Hainault Depot. I had headboard to put on the train, a bit better than the London Underground one, and the crowds. Oh wow! As soon as we got to Epping, all there on the platform, it was standing room only. First time I've ever seen it like it. The actual day was brilliant, which is a bit sad really, because you're talking about the death of a railway, and this railway to me was an old friend. But on the day, it was just brilliant. The day afterwards it sank in. The death of an old friend, the death of a railway, and being a railwayman, it was real sadness. I knew what I thought it was going to be tarmacked over, people just walk their dogs or bicycle, and for me that was it. I left the railway alone in this part. I didn't want to know.
The final Ongar train finally terminated back at Woodford Station, cheered on by the last passengers. After closure, the line was purchased by Pilot Developments, but their assurances to run both commuter and heritage passenger services within 5 years were not realised. The Epping Ongar Railway Volunteer Society was formed, and these enthusiasts worked with the company to run a diesel multiple unit from Ongar to North Weald. The first service started on the 10th of October 2004. The line was extended to Coopersale in the winter of 2005. After the track had been lowered under the M11 motorway bridge. This was to accommodate the extra height of steam and diesel services where the bridge had originally been designed for tube stop. Services continued until December 2007, having operated 5 train journeys every Sunday. The sale by Pilot Developments of the former Ongar goods yard for housing provided an opportunity to save the line. Now, with substantial investment by Epping Ongar Railway's Managing Director Roger Wright, the line has seen substantial improvement and restoration. With passenger services restored on the branch, there is much to see and do within easy reach of the railway, and this will no doubt bring benefits.
The benefit to the local community, I believe, is in having visitors getting to know the area and hopefully using some of the shops and particularly cafes in the high street. This, I think, has grown quite a lot at Ongar. North Weald is a little bit of a quieter high street, but it draws people to see this, and I think that's a benefit for the local community. I think it's a benefit that people get to know the town, and it's a very, very attractive town with a lot of good countryside around, good walking areas, and I think that's the benefit to the town, whereas the visitors who are coming to see the railway see that there's other things here, particularly North Weald Airfield. You've got the local attractions, walkways, lots of countryside. So I think it's been a bonus for both us and for the local community.
Visitors from London to the Epping Ongar Railway can start their experience by travelling to Epping Station at the eastern end of London Underground's Central Line. Epping Station is also the starting point for the Essex Way, a walking route that stretches 81 miles right up to Harwich. The clearly marked path will lead you through ancient woodlands, farmland, river valleys, and leafy green lanes leading to historic towns and villages. Epping is also famous for Epping Forest, an area of 6,000 acres that is London's largest open space. The railway passes through areas of forest that provide beautiful views for travellers. At the turn of the 19th century, the market town of Epping was a last stop for stagecoach travellers before moving on to London. Dick Turpin, the famous highwayman, was said to have operated in and around Epping Forest at High Beach, which is now a popular tourist area. The arrival of the railway at Epping led to the demise of stagecoach travel for a faster and safer form of travel. North Weald Airfield is still operational for light aircraft and specialist aviation companies, as well as being the home to one of the largest Saturday markets in the UK. Many other activities take part at the airfield, making it very much part of the local community and an ideal destination by way of North Weald Station. Special bus services to the airfield run from Epping Station during special events, such as the annual bus rally. Here, enthusiasts can board one of the heritage buses and travel either direct to the airfield or to North Weald Station. The bus rally attracts enthusiasts from all over the southeast, and is one local event that creates an ideal link between the railway and other independent facilities. Located 3 miles out from Ongar is Greensted, which features an ancient Saxon church that is the oldest wooden church in the world. People have worshipped here for over 1,300 years, and today the church displays much evidence of its architectural history. From the north side, the wooden logs along the nave walls are evidence of Saxon times, probably erected in about 1060 AD. The brick-built east end dates back to the 16th century, whilst the brick footings visible below the timber walls are the result of 19th century restoration. The church also features Tudor brickwork, a window and door, as well as Victorian windows and a porch. Greensted Church links back to the days when the Tolpuddle martyrs temporarily resided here in 1836, having returned back from Australia after being pardoned. James Brine, one of the martyrs, married here before moving to Canada to start a new life. Greensted Church is just another example of local history that surrounds the Epping Ongar Railway. Since the reopening in May 2012, the railway has already proved a popular destination for train enthusiasts, local people and family groups from surrounding areas. Many improvements are still planned, and links with other local tourist attractions and facilities are to be developed.
Whilst initially we wanted to concentrate on operating a passenger service and getting the branch established, as we go forward we're looking at a number of special events. We hope to link up with other local attractions, both to cross-promote, but also to do some special events here at the railway. Things like 1940s days, as well as we've got Rail Walk Sunday, where we're encouraging people to come and use the branch to explore the local countryside and the forest. We're working with local groups such as Northwood Preservation Society, Ongar Millennium History Society, as well as people like the Town Council, to really promote people to get out and explore the local area. And the railway, both with its steam and diesel services, as well as its heritage bus services, gives you the ideal way to do that.
With an inclusive ticket for heritage train and bus services, the railway provides a unique experience for all visitors.
The key selling point to this railway is its proximity to London. You can come here now by public transport. A central line operates into Epping, and we have a connecting heritage bus service from Epping to Northfield Station. That has made a big part and has made it easy for people to travel by using public transport, which I think sort of supports the whole idea of a heritage railway and transport in general.
Key to the future success of the railway are the volunteers, who contribute such time and effort, and there's always room for more to join the existing team.
It's very easy to get involved with Epping Ongar Railway as a volunteer. You can go onto our website, www.eorailway.co.uk. On there you'll see a page called How You Can Help, and there's a number of different suggestions as to how you can get in touch with us, as well as an outline of what the different types of roles that you might be interested in undertaking.
Getting volunteers is extremely vital. Without volunteers, there's only so much work that one person can do. So having a good team that can help with the day-to-day jobs and maintenance of locomotives and coaches is extremely vital.
The work done so far on this heritage line is just the start of a new chapter, and many improvements are planned, not least to reach the ultimate goal of restoring services back to Epping.
The plans for future improvements are really part of our strategic plan for the railway for the next 5, 10, 15 years. We've obviously recommenced passenger services between the platform here at Ongar up to Northfield, and we're operating a shuttle service from Northfield into the forest. One of our first priorities is to work with the different stakeholders to once again run services back down to Epping, both for local people as well as for visitors coming to the area. And we hope to achieve this by hopefully working together to build a platform to the north of Epping's underground station, so that trains can once again call at this new platform and people can travel up and down the branch, and there's an easy, attractive and viable interchange at Epping that all people can use.
Now that the Epping Ongar Railway is back on track, the steam and diesel railway experience can be enjoyed and appreciated by a whole new generation.
I think for Essex tourism, this is something really big. It's on a grand scale. We've never seen anything like this in our county. With the greatest respect to the steam heritage lines that are here, this is the longest, it's the closest to London. It's really going to put Essex on the map. You can get off the underground at Epping, you can get the heritage bus to Northfield, and you're back in time. You're back on a heritage railway, and you can travel for something like 6 miles on a steam railway. This close to London, I can't believe it.
The response by passengers coming to the railway has been phenomenal. They've really enjoyed the day out, and we have visitor surveys out on the train, and we encourage people to give their feedback. Many local people delighted obviously to see their stations at Ongar and at Northfield being restored and being once again running trains to and from them, and really wishing us all the best in their support as we head towards Epping and look towards the vision of a platform at Epping.